Hello everyone, my name is Niall and in this video I'm going to talk about Life is Strange 2. I'm going to go over some of the main themes of the season and what we've learned about these themes in episode 1, Roads. I also want to give you some of my personal thoughts about the first episode and what we might see in future episodes. So warning, there's going to be spoilers for all Life is Strange games up to episode 1 of Life is Strange 2. The first pretty obvious theme from Life is Strange 2 is brotherhood. You play as 16-year-old Sean Diaz, who is taking care of his 9-year-old brother Daniel whilst travelling on the road. They're moving south from their hometown in Seattle with the intention of reaching their father's childhood home, Puerto Lobos in Mexico. I won't go into too much detail in the actual story as everyone watching should have played the episode already, but having a younger brother to take care of as a protagonist adds an extra element in comparison to previous Life is Strange games. Not only are we responsible for ourselves, we're also now directly responsible. Emphasis on directly because for Life is Strange 1, I won't go into that right now. For our young, innocent, Choco Crisp eating zombie brother, who needs to be looked out for and taught a lot of different lessons throughout the game's story. Oh, and as if that wasn't enough responsibility, now we have Mushroom as well. Daniel.
What? We saved her!
Puppies are hard enough to look after in the best of circumstances, so I'm interested to see how this all turns out. I gotta say though, I absolutely love the way Esteban says Choco Crisp.
Final Choco Crisp.
A line in the episode mentions that Sean and Daniel sharing the same pain will make them stronger. Having that close relationship with someone who's going through the same dramatic events and situations as you can help drive you onwards and give you someone to lean on when things get tough. This goes some way to counteract the burden of taking care of Daniel, but with Daniel being so young, they might still have difficulty relating to each other. It might be, and already has been really, more of a one-way thing where Sean doesn't have someone to provide him with the same level of reassurance. What will be interesting in the future episodes is seeing their dynamic when Daniel starts to gain control of his powers, or seeing how they're able to cooperate with each other if they start falling out, which is likely to happen quite often considering the amount of time they're spending with each other, and often with only each other for company. Another pretty big theme tackled is segregation, racism, and what it's like to feel like a minority. It'll be interesting to see how this is tackled as the brothers continue moving south. We've already seen some people who are willing to understand and help them, but others who are more willing to be physically violent and tie them up in a dark room. I personally love the tension in that scene. It kind of felt like a bridge between this game and episode 5 of Life is Strange 1, where Max has also been kidnapped and held captive.
You finally awake? Sorry I had to secure you. But if you're innocent, don't act guilty.
Again though, the scene did happen really quickly, so I feel like they could have stretched it out a little more to have more interaction with Hank Stamper. He's a very intimidating character and it might have added more to the story having an extended scene of him questioning us or just being his aggressive self, to be honest. Maybe before or maybe after Sean is captured. To me, segregation is a really interesting thing to experience as a player because it gives you a different perspective of the world. It puts you right in the character's shoes and makes you realise just how often and severely people can discriminate against you through race. I also feel like this might be a way for the developers to tackle these issues after some of the criticism they got for the diversity of characters in Life is Strange 1. I wasn't too familiar with the series when it was released, so I couldn't be sure, but I feel like it should be something that is applauded in the second game, that they put in more effort to correct that criticism since. Life is Strange has never been a series to shy away from tackling important issues. I can't think of another video game that has tried to tackle the issue of racism in this way before, actually putting you into the shoes of someone who has been made an outcast just because of their ethnic background. Another topic that links them pretty well is police shootings, which are highly political when the game was first being developed back in 2016 in particular. It feels heartbreaking as Sean to have someone you love ripped away from you in such a way. It's an extremely unfortunate turn of events with one thing leading to another up until Esteban gets shot by the officer. It also stands out to me how suddenly tragic events can happen. In the space of about a minute it goes from the Skype conversation with Lila to the conversation with Brett, his injury, the officer arriving on the scene and then taking Esteban's life. It really adds to the shock factor, how quickly someone so valuable has been lost, adding to the fact that we're still in the opening stage of the game. This kind of ties in with what I was saying about the sudden nature of Hank kidnapping us. I feel like some scenes of sudden, shocking events, they help, but when you do it too often and the pacing starts to feel off, it's not quite right. With Esteban though, it works very well because of how likeable a character he is. The player feels like they're missing out not having him around. In my opinion, the sheer shock of what happened to Esteban might not have been conveyed properly through Sean. He didn't stay at the scene for very long to take in everything. I personally think he'd struggle to be able to take in the fact that his father's been shot, and the street has been absolutely torn up, made to look like a mini tornado run through, but obviously different people would react differently. On the other hand, his initial reaction to run away with Daniel was one of panic. He didn't have a plan at first, and his only real thought was to flee the area. The story did jump a couple of days in the immediate aftermath, but it's hard to gauge just how much Sean is still in shock. If I were to guess, I'd say the story will probably end up focusing more on the issues they'll face in the future as opposed to dealing with loss. It's something that's been dealt with in Life is Strange Before the Storm, and it would make more sense for Life is Strange 2 to go into depth on other topics. It'll still be interesting to see to what extent they do focus on grief, which might also depend on how big the time jumps are between episodes, or maybe even within episodes. At the same time, it is kind of different for me playing this game because I'm thinking a lot of the time that if I was in Sean's shoes, I wouldn't want to be on the run. It's a very dangerous situation for both Sean and especially Daniel, travelling so far with no help and mainly on foot. I'd personally want to face up to the situation, but obviously Sean's reached a point where he firmly believes that going back is the wrong option. I hope they explore this a bit further with maybe a prominent character that will try and rationally convince them to go back to Seattle, just to hear more of Sean's reasoning. The loneliness of the two brothers is also something I picked up on, which ties in with their segregation from the rest of the world. The way in which the brothers now rely on themselves is almost a metaphor for how they were outcasts in the first place because of their race. They have literally been segregated from other people, as they fear being recognised and ultimately detained by police. I find this theme interesting because it's very different to the school settings of Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm. It's similar to the loneliness of Chris and Captain Spirit, who we might actually meet again in episode 2. Getting really personal here again, this isn't a direct criticism of the game, just something I felt whilst playing. To me, having a smaller social environment within this game is not as enjoyable, because it reflects my personal feelings of loneliness in real life. It doesn't let me escape those feelings like the first couple of games do. Obviously, this is definitely not going to be the same for everyone playing. It does seem like the game might be taking a bit of a risk and not having as many different in-depth characters. Having to meet new characters constantly and then moving along to others might be a challenge. Life is Strange really thrived on having regular characters in Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm. So constantly meeting new characters with a lack of recurring ones could make it tougher to relate to the characters and emotionally attach to them. Okay, this has gone on a while, so last topic. Moving on. The boys have had to suddenly move on, mentally and physically, from their old life, their old friends, and from their father's passing. Again, it's interesting to see how they'll process all this as they travel towards Mexico. Maybe they'll find a way to reintroduce these characters. Maybe Lila will track them down somehow and make a reappearance. She does seem like an important character and a lot of people's favourite from the game. Daniel's favourite too, of course.
I bet Lila would let me go. She's way nicer to me than you. Did she ask about me?
Yes, she wants to marry you.
Shut up!
There was also a section where Brody, the hero I haven't even mentioned yet, shows Sean how much he needs to move on and focus on how he needs his brother at this time. He says this whilst pointing out Arcadia Bay, showing us that that's the past.
What is sure is, that's the past. But you can't look back now. You've got each other.
This seems a not so subtle hint for us, the players, telling us to try and focus on the story of this game as opposed to previous games. On that topic, I feel like it's important for the series to explore new storylines because the possibilities are endless. They could create practically any kind of story, but at the same time I do hope we'll get more games set in Arcadia Bay in the future. A lot of the series storytelling works by letting the players fill in the gaps in some stories and come to their own conclusions, but I think the gaps are just too big in some areas. For For example, Max's time in Seattle, Rachel's kidnapping. It'd also be really interesting for the game to explore other characters from past games in more detail. They all have interesting backstories, and it would make a very fascinating experience learning more about them. Steph, William, and everyone else, to be honest. I feel bad picking favourites. So, moving on, Sean and Daniel together are going to encounter more challenges, and they are rapidly approaching on the horizon. My honest biggest improvement for Life is Strange at the moment would be that I want more. This is the best criticism you can give anything, really. I love the series so much and I want even more from it. So thank you to the developers for doing such a great job. I'm really looking forward to the rest of Life is Strange 2 and beyond. I'll hopefully make more videos of Life is Strange in the future. It's a game series that's really changed my life. I also want to say a quick thanks to WilliamHella. He's an awesome guy with an awesome channel full of awesome Life is Strange videos. You should definitely check them out in the extremely small chance that you haven't already. But in all honesty, his reviews are incredible. He's very talented at reviewing the stories and content in an entertaining and captivating way, and he's able to cover so much detail too. He's inspired me to make this video, and if you're watching, William, thank you. I'm really looking forward to your future videos too. So, thank you all very much for watching, and I shall see you again soon.